morning. The second topic for the day is telemedicine during the era of COVID-19. As we all know, now we are slowly moving towards telemedicine consultation because of the current pandemic. So this is basically the definition of telemedicine according to the telemedicine practice guidelines, which was recently published in India. So it has got a pretty long definition. It is delivery of healthcare services where distance is a critical factor by all healthcare professionals using information and communication technologies for the exchange of valid information for diagnosis, treatment, and prevention of disease and injuries. Also for research and evaluation and for continuing education of healthcare providers, all in the interest of advancing health of individuals and the communities. So this is the extensive definition as put forward by the telemedicine practice guidelines. So coming to the introduction, so we all know physicians are adopting a virtualized treatment approach in the current surge of COVID-19 cases. This, as we know, it obviates a need for physical meetings between the patient and the health provider. So TMS or telemedicine services is a critical asset, and it has important applications across the healthcare delivery spectrum. It has several advantages in the setting of routine care where the patient with minimal symptoms doesn't have to come directly in contact with the healthcare provider. So this is one advantage or list which is listed in the article published recently in Journal of Emergency Care Services, wherein the article title is Leveraging Telemedicine to Optimize Care While Minimizing Exposure and Viral Transmission, wherein they elicited three important aspects of telemedicine. One is that it allays one's fear and anxiety. It helps to seek advice regarding the routine healthcare problems and helps to patient to understand about self-care. So some three objectives have been described in this article. These objectives have been taken considering the WHO priorities. Basically, three priorities have been enlisted by WHO for telemedicine during this pandemic. So these objectives have been derived from them. The first and the foremost is the protection of healthcare workers, thereby minimizing the risk of COVID-19 transmission from mildly symptomatic individuals. And another one is telemedicine. It protects high-risk individuals, especially the elderly, in communicating over other various modes of communication, thereby reducing the hospital visits and thereby decreasing the risk of infections. And also in countries, the developed countries which has adequate staff and healthcare providing, can provide telemedicine-based services for other countries wherein there is no adequate healthcare staff. So various platforms have been used by medical professionals across the globe. Some include robotic telemedicine cart, wherein a camera, screen, and medical equipment is done by doctors and nurses across the online portal. And also remote monitoring, where it doesn't require an additional human presence for monitoring like a thermometer, BP apparatus, or pulse oximetry. So this was an article given in Lancet, which was published in 2017, that is the pre-COVID era, wherein they have enlisted 5 key trends that will influence growth of telehealthcare in the future. So right now we have something, it is already predicted in 2017 that this is going to be an upcoming field, wherein they have enlisted 5 key trends, which has been mentioned in the diagram, and also 3 important aspects wherein there is telemedicine between clinician to clinician, from a clinician to a patient, and the patient to a mobile healthcare technology. So they have also enlisted the various tools used in each aspect. So now coming to the telemedicine practice guidelines. So this is a list of guidelines which have been put forward this is a concurrent guidelines by the telehealth and the Indian doctors, wherein they have enlisted a number of guidelines to be strictly followed during the telemedicine practice, and I have enlisted a few. So here, basically, they have looked into the various strengths and limitations of various modes of communication, like a video, audio, text-based, and email, fax, recordings, etc. Each has got its own strengths and limitations, which have been enlisted. So here there are seven practice guidelines to be followed. That is listed from the context of the communication, identification of the registered medical practitioner and the patient, the mode of communication used, consent, the type of consultation, patient evaluation, and patient management. All seven has its own critical implications when coming to telemedicine. So coming to the first and foremost, that is consent. That consent, as I mentioned, can be of two types. It's an implied or an explicit consent, depending, or already implied consent is one wherein the patient itself has initiated the telemedicine consultation. It's like how a normal patient walks into your OPD, that the patient himself wants to come and approach you, so that that we have taken for granted that consent is already implied. But if the patient, the healthcare worker or a registered medical practitioner initiates a telemedicine consultation, then it's called an explicit consent. And an explicit consent should be recorded in any form. It can be either email, text, audio, video message. And a patient can state his or her own intent on the phone or video to the registered medical practitioner, saying that I have consented and I am willing to give my information. And the RMP must record all this for future any litigation process. So coming to a prescription. So prescription via telemedicine is a very critical aspect, wherein prescribing medication is up to the total discretion of the registered medical practitioner. He can only prescribe when there is adequate information regarding the patient's medical condition. And without any appropriate diagnosis or even a provisional diagnosis, putting forward a prescription can amount to professional misconduct. So here we have listed some drug categories to be used when prescribing a medication. There is list O, list A, list B, and the prohibited list. So list O, it contains all the medications that are safe to be prescribed through any mode of telecommunication. And this would comprise over-the-counter drugs, for example, paracetamol, ORS solutions, cough lozenges, etc. And they may be deemed necessary during the public health emergencies. List A medications can be prescribed during the first consult, which is a video consultation, or are being re-prescribed or for refill in case of follow-up. This has an inclusion list which contains relatively safe medication with low potential or abuse list or abuse, and is list of medication which RMP can prescribe in a patient who is undergoing follow-up consult for a refill. List B is a list of medications which can be prescribed in patients who are undergoing a follow-up consultation, in addition to those who has been prescribed in-person consult for the same medical condition. And prohibited list can provide consultation but cannot be prescribed. These include the medicines which are listed under Schedule X of Drug and Cosmetic Act and rules, and narcotic and psychotropic substances which are listed in the Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substance Act of 1985. So issuing a prescription, this can be a scanned, the registered medical practitioner can scan a digital copy, a signed prescription, or an e-prescription via email, or if the patient wants to get it from a pharmacy of choice, it is entitled making sure that the RMP gives a prescription to the pharmacy where the patient wants to derive the medication from. So this is a sample prescription given in the guidelines on how e-prescription should look like, wherein it has all the important aspects of the patient's RMP's qualification, his registered number, his contact details, his date of consultation, name of patient, everything. And the chief complaint should be correctly enlisted. Finally, the patient's signature should be, the doctor's signature should be there, and his stamp of approval. So now in this current aspect, as we all new to telemedicine, maintaining a digital trail and documentation is of real importance. So this can be in the varied forms, like we can either record a telemedicine interaction. Example, phone logs can be made, email records can be made, or if you are using a text, the chat or text record can be used, or video interactions. The patient records, reports, documents, and images, diagnostic data, either digital or non-digital, used in telemedicine should be retained by the RMP either for future clinical use or for other purposes. So in case the prescription is shared with the patient, RMP is required to maintain the prescription records as required in-person consultation. So coming to patient evaluation over telemedicine. So it is between the practitioner and the patient to provide relevant information. And from patient side, they are responsible 100% for all the accuracy of information shared with the registered medical practitioner. And if the RMP feels that it is inadequate, then he can request for additional information from the patient. So information can be shared either real time or via email and text. So in case the RMP feels it's inadequate, he is in all his liability, he can pause the current medication, teleconferencing for a while, and he can be resumed at a rescheduled visits after organizing for additional information like laboratory or radiological test. So the patient condition, which can be managed by telemedicine, it has three important aspects. That is, it can provide health education as appropriate by providing counseling. If it's only a simple disease which doesn't require any medication, it can be sufficed with only a simple counseling, then it can be done. If the doctor feels that the patient has to undergo any new investigations, like I mentioned before, it can be paused and they can be given a rescheduled or can be resumed at a later date, for having all the information then at hand, and can provide a prescription from the drugs listed in the before mentioned category. This is a very important telemedicine framework which has been enlisted in the guidelines. That is, the conversation can be of 5 different entities. That is, either from the patient to an RMP. There can be a caregiver of the patient. That can either be a patient's relative or patient's friend or someone who's taking care of the patient. So the conversation can be between a caregiver and a registered medical practitioner. It can be between a health worker to an RMP, wherein the patient is not there physically present in the telemedicine conference, or can be between an RMP and an RMP, wherein you have to share any radiological, pathological data between 2 doctors. And finally, telemedicine in emergency situations. So there are certain guidelines which have been enlisted for use of technology. So here we can either use mobile apps, websites for providing telemedicine services to consumers by a registered medical practitioner. Can also, in due diligence, should have his qualification, his name, number, registration number, contact details of every registered medical practitioner should be listed in the platform. And it has been also informed that artificial intelligence or machine learning are not to be used in this current setting. So here there is a flow chart enlisting the first consult. That is the first time the patient comes in contact with the registered medical practitioner. This beautifully describes the entire guidelines in 2 different sets of flow charts. So first the patient comes wherein the video, audio, or text is used. The patient is identified and the consent, that is already that the patient has initiated this conversation, so it's taken as an implied consent. So the RMP quickly assesses the emergency care if it's needed. If it's needed, then he is to be advised first aid and asked to meet a doctor who is nearby. If it's not, then a detailed patient evaluation regarding all the above mentioned consents should be required. If the doctor feels that this has been appropriate for management, then if it's appropriate for management, then health education can be given, either health education or just a simple counseling or specific treatment listing the above mentioned drugs can be given. If he feels after acquiring all these details that it is not adequate, then he could, at the best, what he can do is just give a health education or refer for an inpatient consult. This is very important. Here, the doctor should not take any chances of giving a management if he feels the information is inadequate or if he feels that the patient has to be visited in person to a doctor. So here, if otherwise, then this following flowchart can be done. And in case the communication is on audio, then he can prescribe the medicines listed only in list A. So this is another flowchart which describes the flowchart between a health worker and a registered medical practitioner, wherein the health worker himself has to identify either via video, audio, or text, and the RMP and the patient identify themselves can correspond. So here again, the registered medical practitioner should quickly assess if he feels. So this is the part from the health worker. The following flowchart depicts the part from the RMP. So if he quickly assesses and if it's an emergency care that is needed, then he should advise first aid and then provide immediate relief to and facilitate referral. If not, the patient feels it can be managed, then he should again, as priorly mentioned, we should have a detailed patient evaluation. And if it can be managed, then the following flowchart can be used. If not, the health education has to refer the patient for a healthcare, can advise healthcare worker to refer the patient to a in-person consult. So coming to the conclusion, it is currently the need of the hour from the current situation of the pandemic. It can ensure health worker or patient safety. And even after the pandemic subsides, the telemedicine services an important role to play in the future. Thank you.